Hi guys, this is the third take on this video because I'm stupid. Welcome to the casting couch. Today we're gonna speak about something that is really interesting for the third time. This is incredible. So, what a wanker guy, huh? In my best shirt ever. Boom. So, let's speak about power and spool. Power and spool. This is today's topic is power and spool, and how are these two related? We're gonna speak about this, and I'm gonna keep it short, 10 minutes. We'll see about that, right? So, anyhow, this is so stupid. I was gonna repeat myself. And I can't do it equally good as I did the last time. So the second take was the best, but I fucked up. That's how it is. So anyhow, your engine has two kinds of power today. You have NA power, but you have a 606 turbo, so you have turbo power. That's two types of power. Your 606 turbo has 177 horsepower, right? But when we speak about the engine's power, we're actually speaking about the engine's power, not with a stock turbo. Because when you are going to put your HX35 on that engine, you're not going to use your stock turbo, right? So you're going to throw that away. That means that you have a 606 that is NA. And on that engine you put your whatever turbo. Right? We get that. That means that your OM606 has 136 horsepower. But it's 30 years old, so you have 130. I'm being nice to your engine now. 130. But you put a good pump on it, and that pump will give you more power. It's exactly like tuning a petrol NA engine. It's like you will get more power because you're just doing it a little bit more efficient. So you will get 140. That's a good calculation number. If you boost one bar, you will have 280. You know, if you boost 2 bars, you will have 280 plus 140, 420. Yeah, whatever. So it's a good number. If you just follow that 140 horsepower, you will be in the ballpark, and you can see that over and over and over again on people's build. So you have 140 horsepower, and this is what you have to drive your turbine, and you don't want to drive your turbine at 4,500 RPM. You want to drive your turbine at 2,000 RPM. And there you have maybe 20 horsepower, 25 at best, but yeah, somewhere around there. And this is where it gets interesting, because you have one thing that is the most important of everything, and that is your exhaust gas velocity. And this is something that is really, really interesting, because and I'm gonna try to say this in a way that everyone understands, right? So don't trash me for not going into this technically, because then no one will get it, right? We're talking something that is thermodynamic, and that means that your exhaust gas velocity is dependent on heat. That means that the more heat you can keep in your exhaust manifold and in your turbine housing, the faster the gases will go out of the engine. They will not speed up, but they will not slow down. So you have your combustion, and that creates an exhaust pulse, and this exhaust pulse has a given heat, and often referred to as EGT, exhaust gas temperature, and the hotter the exhaust gases are, the faster to go. we're gonna get to this very soon. But anyhow, so you want to keep your heat in your exhaust manifold and in your turbine housing to keep the velocity of the gases, exhaust gas velocity, right? And in that way, we're driving the compressor on the turbo, and we can just exhaust the gases into your downpipe, and there we don't care. You know, the first piece of your downpipe, if you keep that also wrapped, so you actually keeping the heat a little bit before we, you know, so we create some space in your exhaust system. That's always good. But other than that, we don't really have to care. On that note, we have something that is a little bit worrying, because we want spool at 2000 RPM. And on modern engines, we can change timing and even valve, when the valves opens and how much the valves open. And you know, we can regulate a lot of things on modern engines. But on our old OM606s, we can't do that. Everything is just static. And at 2000 RPM, our exhaust pulses are very gentle and very soft. I think that's the best way to say it. It's not a hard pulse. And you can think about this as we having a 6-cylinder engine, and we have in 720 degrees of the crank revolutions, we have 6 firings and 6 gases coming out. And we have an idle that is 750 RPM, something like that, right? So imagine a single cylinder 4-stroke motorcycle engine that is 500 cc, like one of your cylinders on your 606. That has an idle of 1500 RPM, more or less, and that's twice as much as your 606. But on idle, your 606 is very, very smooth. And on 1500 RPM, the motorcycle engine is dum 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 dum. Yeah, why is that? Yeah, because it's one exhaust pulse every 720 degrees. So let's say that I speed up things. So I just up my revolutions on my 500 cc motocross engine, right? So I up that 750 RPM idle 606 times 6, right? That is, I can't even calculate this, 2,200, 4,500 RPM, give or take, right? So 4,500 RPM. So I go up to 4.5, and it will not at all sound like the 606 on idle. But I'm doing the same amount of exhaust pulses in 720 degrees, or in 1 minute, whatever, not in 7, in 1 minute. So in 1 minute, I will do the same amount of exhaust pulses. Why don't they sound the same? Isn't this strange, right? Because you have all these pulses, pum, 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 through your cylinders in your 606. And it doesn't sound like the motorcycle engine at 4,500 RPM. Because when you up your revolutions, doesn't matter how many cylinders you have, when you up your revolutions, the exhaust pulses gets stronger and harder, or harsh, maybe? I don't know in English, but you know, it's like you have a gentle, soft pulse at idle, and when you up your revolution, the exhaust pulses is really, really hard. And that is why the sound is so different, right? So I'm trying to cook this down for you. 8 minutes 30, this is crazy. I'm not even halfway. Woo! But, so this is the thing, that you want at 2000 RPM, you want to drive your turbine on your turbo. So you have no power, and you have exhaust pulses that are very gentle still at 2000 RPM. and you're going to drive the turbine. And this is the problem. And this is why your engine doesn't spool. First of all, right? So you have everything is gentle, but you also have very little exhaust gases because you have like 20 horsepower. You have nothing. So here is where it boils down on the power. You can have your little 4-cylinder Honda engine, 2 liter, or Saab engine, or Volvo engine, or whatever engine, right? Your little 2 liter 4-cylinder petrol engine. And that sucker has 150, 170, 200 horsepower, right? And you have 140 in your 6-cylinder 3 liter. So that is why you take your M104 3 liter 6-cylinder 97 millimeter bore spacing, you know, like this, the same stroke. The 3 liter doesn't have that. The 3.2 liter has the same stroke. And you know, it's like, it's the same engine. But the M104 has 220 horsepower. And you have 140. So when you're gonna drive the same turbo, it's not gonna spool. I have much more torque, I have a diesel. No, you don't. Because if you can't drive your turbine, you don't have nothing. So the M104 will produce more torque at a lower RPM with the same turbo than your 606. And that's running on corn use. It's an 80 horsepower difference. 80, 160, you know? It has more than 50% of your engine power. So of course it can drive a turbo much better than your OM606. And it's getting even worse on the 605 and even worse on the 604 because you have less power. And this is the problem, that we are trying with a very little amount of exhaust gases that exits the cylinders in a very orderly fashion to drive a very big turbine. And that is a problem. And I think this is important to understand, instead of just bashing a platform and saying, these don't make this, these don't, but this platform is not about that. This platform is easy and cheap, relatively, right? And it's fun. It revs a lot. It sounds amazing. It has a lot of things going for it. And we have to appreciate that. But when it doesn't spool, it's not because of my turbo is wrong. Maybe your turbo is perfectly fine, but it should be on another engine, right? So we need specific stuff for a specific engine. If you have an LS3 that is producing, I don't know what they do, 500 horsepower, right? And you put one single HX35 on that, it will spool on idle, but it will not make any power because the turbo is too small. It can't even do what this engine is doing. You know, it's like it can't even keep up with the engine. So that's a wrong engine for that platform, right? And we have to think like that for our engines as well. We have to choose what is the best for our platform and for me, for my use of this engine. And we shouldn't be afraid of doing what everyone else is doing. You know, because people say, no, this is shit, I'm gonna move to 648. Alright? But the 648 is electronic. And you didn't want electronic on this engine. So why don't you run an EDC pump and a DSL1 and a VNT turbo and control the VNT turbo with a RIA connected with PWM to your DSL1 and tune it like a proper fucking man? Why are you whining about shit? You know, I'm gonna move platform. Okay, but yeah, do that. But you can't, if you're gonna move to something that is the same as this. Or you can just do it on this one. So I think people are a little bit lazy and a little bit ignorant, because this platform isn't magic, but this platform is very good, and it has very, very good aftermarket support, as the DSL-1, for example. And even if you're running a mechanical pump and you have an off-gear controller, for example, and a 722.6, you can control your VNT turbo with the off-gear controller. What, you didn't know that? I mean, you haven't read the documentation? So it's like, we have to take the platform for what it is, and we have to understand, this is why I do this video, we have to understand why this platform performs the way it does. And now you know that. Exhaust gas velocity. That's how we spell it. Peace out, guys. So, bye.